All right, today we're going to be looking at order of operations. So these are the standards that we're going to be covering. This just tells you what I'm going to be teaching you. All right, so we're going to take a deep dive into the order of operations. Operations are the type of problem that you're working, like addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. There's an order to how we need to work these problems, and there's an order to these operations when they appear in the problem. So we're going to look at the properties of operations as well as what the order of operations are. And when I talk about the properties of operations, that's how we write it and work certain problems. All right, so the very first thing we're going to look at is what are order of operations. When we look at math, the order of operations are the rules that state the sequence, which is the order, in which the multiple operations in an expression should be solved. So when we're looking at order of operations, that means we have a problem that has more than one operation in it. So it has more than one type of problem. So it might have multiplication and addition in it. One way to remember how to work these is PEMDAS. So each letter stands for a different mathematical operation. So when we talk about mathematical operations, that's where we're talking about multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. But there's also two other components to this. One is parentheses and one is exponents. You're going to learn more about those in later grades. So we're not going to focus on the first two steps of the order of operations. We're going to focus on steps 3 and 4. So steps 3 and 4 are about our multiplication and division, and then our addition and subtraction. So what we're going to be looking at today is how do we solve those problems that might have multiplication and addition in them, or multiplication, addition, and subtraction in them. So when we look at those, we start with the multiplication and division, and then we move to addition and subtraction. So we're going to go on and we're going to look at these more in detail, but remember, we're not covering steps 1 and 2. We are only looking at 3 and 4. You will learn 1 and 2 in a later grade. All right, so the first step that we're going to look at is multiplication and division. So when you have a problem that has multiplication and division in it and some other operation, so it might have addition or subtraction, you're going to do the multiplication and division first. So whichever one comes first in that problem, you're going to do it. It does not matter if you do the division or the multiplication first. What matters is that you do the multiplication or division before you do the addition or subtraction. You'll complete the steps of these types of operations before the other types. So if I had a problem that had addition, subtraction, and then multiplication, I would do the multiplication first and then go back and do the addition and subtraction. So the example below has all 4 operations in it. So if you look, it says 25 minus 5 times 3 plus 9 divided by 3. That's a very long equation, and I know we haven't looked at those types a lot. But one of our standards in 3rd grade is that we do know how to solve these problems using the order of operations. So if I looked at that problem, I automatically see multiplication and division are both in there, and I know that I need to do multiplication and division first. So I need to look, okay, that is 5 times 3, and that is 9 divided by 3. So I'm going to work it after I figure out where my multiplication and my division are, because they come first. Then I'm going to work it left to right. So 5 times 3 is 15. 9 divided by 3 is 3. And then that gives me a whole new equation that I write underneath it. So I did not do anything with the subtraction problem that was at the beginning. 25 minus We already worked out that green section. 5 times 3 is 15. We did not do anything with our plus sign yet, so we just bring it down. And then 9 divided by 3 we said was 3. So our new equation is 25 minus 15 plus 3. Now we're going to move on and look at what we need to do with the addition and subtraction problem. All right, so after we completed that multiplication and division items in that problem, then we go back and we do the subtraction and addition, and we just work those however they came in the problem. So we just work from left to right and figure out what the answer is. At this point, when we solve this equation, we have our answer. So the example, we've already done the multiplication and division, so we were left with 25 minus 15 plus 3. So we just go across. 25 minus 15 gives us 10, so we write that underneath there. We did not do anything with the plus 3, so we bring it down. 10 plus 3 is 13, so the answer to this problem was 13. So again, remember, you do the multiplication and division first, then you do your addition and subtraction. All right, why would we follow these order of operations? So the reason we have these rules is to help us get the correct answer when we're looking at a longer equation or expression. And these equations or expressions are going to have multiple operations in them: multiplication and division, and subtraction, multiplication, addition, and subtraction. It has multiple operations in it. So this chart gives us an example of how we would get different answers if we did not follow this order of operations. So on the left, this expression was just solved going left to right. They did not use the order of operations, so they just went straight across. So they got 6 times 3 is 18. The next line, they did 18 plus 4, that's 22. Then they solved 22 times 9 is 198. Then they divided by 3 because they just went straight across. They got that their answer was 66. Because they did not follow the order of operations, this question is wrong. Their answer is not correct. If you look at the right side did follow those order of operations. So they did their parentheses first, which you will learn about later. But it is a division problem. So they divided first. So 9 divided by 3 was 3. So their new equation was 6 times 3 plus 4 times 3. Now they're going to do the first set of multiplication. So 6 times 3 is 18. They did not do anything to plus 4. And they did not do anything to times 3, so they just bring that down. So they have 18 plus 4 times 3. They're going to do the multiplication again. 4 times 3. 4 times 3 is 12. So now they have 18 plus 12. Their answer is 30 when they do that final addition. The correct answer for this problem is 30 because they followed the order of operations. So when you're looking at a problem that gives you multiple steps like this, that has multiple operations, the importance of following the order of operations and doing multiplication and division first, then your addition and subtraction will mean you're going to get it correct. If you do not follow order of operations, you could get it wrong. If you follow the order of operations, the only thing that could really mess you up is if you don't get the correct number when you multiply or divide or add and subtract. Okay. All right, so let's review this order of operations again. And again, we're not doing the first couple of steps. You're going to learn about those later. So we're looking at steps 3 and 4. So we're looking at multiplication and division. So you're going to perform all the multiplication and division first, and you're going to perform those from left to right. Remember, in a math problem, we're going from left to right when we have long equations this way. Then we're going to look at addition and subtraction. And when you perform all of the addition and subtraction at this point, you will get your answer to the equation. So remember, you're going to do your multiplication and division first. Then you're going to do your addition and subtraction, and that will give you your answer. All right, I know that was a lot of information, so we're going to take a GoNoodle break really quick.
NTV, Noodle Television, 24 hours a day on cable TV. No, wait, it's not on cable TV. It's online at GoNoodle.com or on the GoNoodle app. Check it. You should know that Chris Cross ain't having anything today. We stand here totally crossed out, and we come to make ya drop, drop. The Mac Dad will make ya drop, drop. The Daddy Mac will make ya drop, drop. Chris Cross will make ya drop, drop. Don't try to compare us to another little fad. I'm the Mac and I'm back. Give you something that you never had. I'll make you jump, jump, wiggle and shake you wrong. Cause I'll be kicking the flavor that makes you wanna jump. How high? Real high. Cause I'm just so fly. A young lover, but huggable type of guy. And everything is in the back with a little slack. And inside out is wiggity, 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 whack. Jump, jump. The Mac Dad'll make ya jump, jump. The Daddy Mac will make ya jump, jump. Chris Cross will make ya jump, jump. Jump, jump. The Mac Dad'll make ya jump, jump. Daddy Mac will make ya jump, jump. Chris Cross will make ya jump, jump. In the midst of making take a step back. They try to step to the Mac and then they got jacked to the back. You'll be scoring the gear. Is that coincidental? Act like you know it. Don't be claiming that it's mental. Two little kids with a flow you ain't never heard. And I'm faking you can understand every word as you listen to my cool school melody. The Daddy makes you J-U-M-P. Jump, jump. The Mac Dad'll make ya jump, jump. The Daddy Mac will make ya jump, jump. Chris Cross will make ya jump, jump. Jump, jump. The Mac Dad'll make ya jump, jump. The Daddy Mac will make ya jump, jump. Chris Cross will make ya jump, jump. Now, the formalities of this and that is that Chris Cross ain't coming off wet. And for all y'all that don't know, check it out. Some of them try to rhyme, but they can't rhyme like this. Some of them try to rhyme, but they can't rhyme like this. Some of them try to rhyme, but they can't rhyme like this. Some of them try to rhyme, but they can't. 'Cause I'm the miggity Mac Daddy. I'm the miggity Mac. I'm the miggity Mac Daddy. I'm the miggity Mac. I'll make you wanna jump, jump. The Mac Dad'll make ya jump, jump. The Daddy Mac will make ya jump, jump. Chris Cross will make ya jump, jump. Jump, jump. Jump, jump. The Mac Dad'll make ya jump, jump. The Daddy Mac will make ya jump, jump. Chris Cross will make ya jump, jump. Jump, jump. Jump, jump. Want to learn how to make snacks, do tricks, draw things, and more? Then download the GoNoodle app and join us for GoNoodle Go Summer.
Alrighty. All right, so now we're going to get into the properties of operations. So we just looked at how to solve equations that have multiple operations in them. Now we're going to look at some of the properties. So when I say properties, I mean that the way we work these addition and multiplication problems, and they have a certain name for each of the properties. We've already discussed some of these. We're just going to put a name to them now. We looked at a lot of them when we looked at multiplication yesterday. All right, so this is an overview, and then we're going to get in more detail on the next few slides. So there are properties called associative properties, commutative properties, identity properties, and distributive properties. So we're going to look at those 4 types of properties. There's also going to be an extra one for multiplication called the zero property, but we already know what that one means. So when we get to that one, there's not as much information that we need on that. So we'll look at it when we get to that slide. All right, so the properties of addition. The identity property of addition means that any number added to 0 will equal that number. So when you have an identity problem, that's any problem in addition that you're adding 0 to. That just means that that problem is going to be whatever number you're adding to 0. So if I have 8 plus 0, it's 8. That's an identity problem. 7 plus 0 equals 7. That's an identity problem. If I have commutative property of addition, that means that you can add 2 or more add-ins in any order and get the same sum. So remember, in addition, it is add-in plus add-in equals sum. So when we look at commutative property of addition, that means we can flip the numbers and we'll get the same answer. So 3 plus 4 equals 7 and 4 plus 3 equals 7. It's the same thing. It does not matter which order we put them in. This property does not work for subtraction. You cannot flip subtraction problems and get the same answer. So make sure if you're asked what property this is, that you don't put of subtraction, because it's not a property of subtraction. This is a property for addition. You can switch the 2 add-ins and you're still going to get the same sum. All right, your associative property of addition means that you can group add-ins in different ways and still get the same answer. So that means if we use parentheses, which are these things that look like C's, looks like a C and a backward C. If we use those in an addition problem, we can swap where they're at and still get the same sum. So if we had 16 plus 7 plus 23, we would add 16 plus 7 and then add 23. If we had 16 plus 7 plus 23, we would add 7 plus 23 and then add 16. We're going to get the same answer. That group does not change what our answer is. Okay? Listen to this song that goes over those properties again.
Add 3 plus 8, or 8 plus 3. The sum's the same with commutative property. Order add-ins in any way, and the sum will always be the same. Every 4th grader here should know it. Everyone here plus you. Let me tell you about all the properties. Let's start with commutative. It's the first you see. Then there's associative and there's identity. Now you know. 3 addition properties. If only you saw what I could see. It's the commutative addition property. Then there's associative and there's identity. Now you know. 3 addition properties. Now you know the properties. So come on, let's move along. Associative property has parentheses. Group the add-ins in any way. Add them up and get the same sum any day. Every 4th grader here should know it. Everyone here plus you. Let me tell you about all the properties. Let's start with commutative. It's the first you see. Then there's associative and there's identity. Now you know. 3 addition properties. If only you saw what I can see. It's the commutative addition property. Then there's associative and there's identity. Now you know. 3 addition properties. me tell you about all the properties. Let's start with commutative. It's the first you see. And there's associative and there's identity. Now you know. Three addition properties. Tell you about all the properties. Let's start with commutative. It's the first you see. And there's associative and there's identity. Now you know. Three addition properties. If only you saw what I can see. It's a commutative addition property. And there's associative and there's identity. Now you know. Three addition properties. Three addition properties. Now you know the properties. Thanks, guys.
All right, so that song did say fourth grade in there just because those teachers were fourth grade teachers and they were reviewing it for their fourth graders. But I just wanted you guys to hear that song because that sometimes songs help us pick up on those properties a little bit easier. So now we're going to move to the multiplication properties. So when we look at multiplication properties, the identity property means that the product, which is the answer in multiplication, the product of any number and 1 is that number. So just like we talked about in addition, the addition identity property was any number plus 0. For multiplication identity property, it's any number times 1 equals that number. So remember, when we look at our ones, anything times 1 is that number. So we already knew that. Now we're just putting a name on that property. It is the identity property. The 0 property. Any product in a problem that is multiplying by 0 is going to be 0. Product is our answer. We know that anything times 0 is 0. So the 0 property is in multiplication, and that means that any number multiplied by 0 is 0. The associative property. That means that you can group factors in a different way and still get the same product. So if I had 2 times 3 times 4, and I have 3 times 4 in parentheses, I can move my parentheses to 2 times 3 and then have times 4 at the end, and I'm still going to get 24 for both of those answers. So just like we looked in the addition problems, we can move those parentheses and still get the same product. The commutative property of multiplication means you can change the order of the factors, but the product is going to remain the same. So we can look at that again, just like we did with addition. We can say 4 times 3 and 3 times 4. They're both going to be 12. It doesn't matter which order your number comes in with commutative property of multiplication. 6 times 5 and 5 times 6 are always both going to be 30. It's not going to change your product in your multiplication problem if you switch the two around. This does not work for division, just like it does not work for subtraction when you have the addition property. Okay. When we look at multiplication, there's also the distributive property of multiplication. And we have done this property with some of our work, but we've not put a name on it. So when we look at the distributive property, that means that we can multiply a sum by a number, and that's going to be the same as if we multiplied each addend by that number and then added those two together. So if I had 6 times 7, I can also say that is 3 times 7 and 3 times 7, and then add those two together. We're going to look a little bit more at that one on a different slide because I know that one can sound a little confusing, but it's really just distributing out that problem. So you can take a multiplication problem and turn it into a smaller multiplication problem and then add it together to get the same answer. All right, we're going to review this song, so listen carefully.
y'all. When you have to multiply more than two factors, like 2 times 3 times 4, where do you start? It doesn't matter. 2 times 3 or 3 times 4, switch it up and group 4 times 3. Use these fancy things a group called parentheses. Flip-flop those factors, commutative. Change the group in order, associative. Break one factor down, yo, that's distributive. Times one's identity, and then there's zero property. Flip-flop those factors, commutative. Change the group in order, associative. Break one factor down, yo, that's distributive. Times one's identity, and then there's zero property. Distributive's my fave, put on your brave face, cause it's kinda weird at first. That's why I'm taking this whole verse to help you conquer it. Word, ego 7 times 8. Wait, I don't know my 7s or my 8s yet, great. But you probably know your 2s and 5s, right? Yeah, so what? So break down the factor 7 into 2 plus 5. Now what? 2 times 8 is 16, and 5 times 8 is 40. Now it's time to add them, shorty. What is 16 plus 40? Well, that'd be 56. That's it. Hashtag distributed. Flip-flop those factors, commutative. Change the group in order, associative. Break one factor down, yo, that's distributive. Times one's identity, and then there's zero property. Flip-flop those factors, commutative. Change the group in order, associative. Break one factor down, yo, that's distributive. Times one's identity, and then there's zero property. Every time you multiply a factor by 1, the product is the same. Like 5 times 1 is 5, and 1 times 3 is 3. Identity. Hold up. What about 0, 0? You gotta give me that 0, 0. Yo. You gotta factor that 0, 0. Well then, the product is 0, 0.
Associative, distributive, identity, and zero property.
Flip-flop those factors, commutative. Change the group in order, associative. Break one factor down, yo, that's distributive. Times one's identity, and then there's zero property. Flip-flop those factors, commutative. Change the group in order, associative. Break one factor down, yo, that's distributive. Times one's identity, and then there's zero property.
All right, so that showed a little bit more of the distributive property in an example that might explain it a little better. But we're going to take this chart and we're going to review those, and this might help as well. So again, the commutative property means that the numbers can swap or commute places and still get the same answer. So 2 times 4 and 4 times 2 are the same thing. They both equal 8. 4 plus 5 and 5 plus 4 both equal 9. So in both addition and multiplication, the commutative property just means that whatever you're adding or multiplying can switch places and you'll still get the same answer. The identity property, that means that the number shows its identity. It does not change. In addition, that's going to be adding 0. In multiplication, that's going to be multiplying by 1. 3 plus 0 is 3. 3 times 1 is 3. So again, identity means that any number in addition added to 0 is going to be that number. Any number in multiplication multiplied by 1 is going to be that number. Associative property means that groups can change, but your answer stays the same. So you group them in parentheses, and your parentheses can move, but your answer is going to stay the same. Distributive property means that multiplying all the numbers by one number and then add them is the same thing as adding them and then multiplying. Distribute means that you're going to use one of those numbers on all of them. So if you look at our example, we have 5 times 4 plus 6. So they took 5 and they multiplied it by 4, which gave them 20. And then they multiplied it by 6, which gave them 30. And then they added 20 plus 30 equals 50. They could also break that down and do 5 times 10, because 4 plus 6 is 10. So distributive just means that they take one of the numbers and they are multiplying it out by all of the other numbers. And they're going to get the same answer as if they had added it and then multiplied it. They could have also brought it down and put it into 2 sets of parentheses and done 5 times 4 and 5 times 6. And that would have given them the same answer when they added it together. All right, we're going to take another Go Noodle break because I know that was a lot of information too. So get ready for your Go Noodle break.
Brain size with Mr. Catman. Shoulder rock and roll. Meow. Mr. Catman is doing his robot dancing. Slick. Roll your shoulders forward like Mr. Catman. Next, roll your shoulders backward. Now let's combine the two. Roll one shoulder forward and roll the other shoulder backward at the same time. You got it? Roll one shoulder forward and the other shoulder backward at the same time. Awesome. Meow, switch sides. Roll your opposite shoulder forward and the other shoulder backward. If you can't get it, no need to have a catitude. Practice makes perfect. For real. Meow.
All right, we'll do one more.
Serena, Athena,
and Kai here.
and you're watching NTV, Noodle Television. We want our NTV! Oh, you people, can't you see how your love's affecting our reality? Every time we're down, you can make it right, and that makes you larger. That makes you larger. That makes you larger than life.
Alrighty. Now we're going to practice these examples of properties for both addition and multiplication. What I want you to do is say your answer of which property it is before I show the answer. Remember, you got this. Just take your time and think back to what those properties meant. All right, practice number 1. When you add, you can group the numbers in any combination. When you multiply, you can group the numbers in any combination. So take a minute, look at those examples in red, and then say your answer or tell someone at home what your answer is before I show the answer. Remember, the properties are identity, commutative, associative, distributive, zero property. So what is this property? All right, this is the associative property. Remember, with the associative property, you can move the groups around in that problem and it's not going to change your answer. All right, practice number 2. You can add in any order or you can multiply in any order. Take a minute, look at those red examples and say your answer or tell someone in your house what your answer is before I show you the answer. All right. Commutative property. Remember, the order can change, but your answer is going to stay the same. 2 times 4 is the same thing as 4 times 2. 3 plus 4 is the same thing as 4 plus 3. Commutative means it can switch places. All right, practice 3. The sum of 0 and any number is the number. The product of 1 and any number is the number. So which property is this? Take a minute, look at the red examples. Say it to someone in your house or say it to yourself. I will give you the answer in just a minute. This is the identity property. So remember, an identity property of addition, anything added to 0 is going to be that number. In multiplication, anything multiplied by 1 is going to be that number. Identity means that it stays the same. It's giving its true identity. 1 times 3 is 3. 4 plus 0 is 4. It does not change. All right, we're going to do one quick Go Noodle break, and then we're going to review our lesson.
Elephant bread.
Elephants only sleep about 4 hours a night.
Ooh.
You think they'd be exhausted all day long, but they're not. If you're feeling sluggish, elephant breath can help perk you up.
I need the quick pick me up.
To get your elephant breath on, stand with your feet wide apart
Ooh.
and dangle your arms in front of you like an elephant trunk. Breathe in through your nose as you raise your arms high above your head. Then breathe out through your mouth as you swing your arms down. Try it.
Hey, look at me. I'm a moose-elephant.
Yes, you up. Let's stand tall and let's breathe like a herd of elephants. Ready? Breathe in and out. Breathe in, arms up. Breathe out, arms down. Breathe in and up. Breathe out and down. Breathe in and up. And out and down. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in, arms up. Lower them. Breathe in, arms up. Breathe out, arms down. Breathe in and out. Raise up, arms down. Breathe in, breathe out. Nice! Hopefully these breaths left you energized. And to make sure you stay energized, try to get at least 9 hours of sleep each night. You may breathe like an elephant, but you shouldn't sleep like one.
I have so much energy now. I wanna dance. Whoa! Hey, Fabio, a dance. Oh, almost got stuck down there.
All right, we're going to review these properties again. So when we are reviewing these, the commutative property is where you can add or multiply in any order. You will get the same answer. This property does not work for subtraction or division. So if we look at our examples, 2 times 4 and 4 times 2 are both the same thing. They equal 8, so that is a commutative property. 4 plus 3 and 3 plus 4 both equal 7. That is a commutative property for addition. All right, associative property. Associative property means you can group the numbers in any order and get the same answer. So you can move the parentheses in your problem. So if we had 2 plus 5 plus 3, and our first problem had 5 plus 3 in parentheses, the second one had 2 plus 5, they are both going to equal 10 because we're going to solve them out the same way. Same thing applies for 2 times 5 times 3. It does not matter where our parentheses are with these problems because they're going to give us the same answer. All right, identity property. Remember that the identity property means that the answer is going to be one of the numbers you're using. And for addition, that's anything plus 0. So when you're adding 0, that's an identity problem. And that answer is going to be whatever the other number is. 12 plus 0 is 12. For multiplication, it is anytime you are multiplying by 1. Anything times 1 is itself. So 12 times 1 is 12. Both of those are identity properties. The answer is whatever the problem, whatever you're working with in the problem, that is not 0 or 1. All right, the distributive property is multiplying one number by both parts and adding the same, multiplying one number by both parts and then adding is the same as adding the parts and then multiplying them by each other. So we have in our example in this chart, 4 times 5. 4 times 5 can be shown as 5 times 10 plus 4 in parentheses, or as 2 sets of parentheses, 5 times 10 plus 5 times 4. Both of those will give you 70 when you work them out. So distributive means you can break it up. You're splitting that problem up. So you're either multiplying it by what you have added together in your parentheses, or you're going to split it up and multiply and make 2 sets of parentheses. The 0 property of multiplication is where you are multiplying by 0, and any number multiplied by 0 is 0. It does not matter what the number is. If you're multiplying by 0, the product is 0. All right, that is our assignment for today, our lesson. You have 2 assignments. You have a GoNoodle form called Order of Operations, and then you need to log into SplashLearn and complete 2 assignments. I will be checking your time spent on Splash Learn because this is part of your assignment today. All right, so remember that these slides are up for you if you need to look back at them, and you can rewatch my video at any time if you need to look back at it. If you have any questions about any of it, feel free to make a comment on the assignment and I will reach back out to you. All right, have a good day.